In this lecture, we'll implement an outline that will help us with grabbing the objects. To get the outline material, go to the course shared folder, section 2, grab outline, and here find moutline. Hit download. Here locate your projects folder, go to content, here VR template, materials, and save it over here or to any other location you'd like. Now launch the project. Let's start with creating the material instance of our material. Let's allocate it first, right click, create material instance. Using the material instance, we'll be able to customize the parameters without affecting the basic material. Now let's find our blueprint function library, where we're gonna need one more function that will help us to identify whether the object can be a potential target. Here it is, let's create a function. It's gonna take just an actor reference as an input, and based on that we'll return true or false, whether it can be considered a target or not. First, we'll create the actor input variable. And we're gonna need the out variable, let's call it just can be potential target, and it should be of type Boolean. Now we're gonna need to get all the grab components of this actor. We can use get components of class. Here you have to first specify the class, which is grab component, and now use for each loop. And for each component, we will check whether it's held or pulled at the moment. And if either of those is true, we will return false. Otherwise, we will return true. So if it's pulled, if any component of the object is pulled or held, it cannot be a potential target for us. Otherwise, it's absolutely free and we can highlight it with our outline or do anything else. So it's suitable for grabbing or for adding the outline. Okay, this function is complete. Now let's go to our VR pawn. We're gonna start with creating two more variables that will keep references to the target components, to the target grab components that we are trying to currently highlight with an outline. So there should be the one for the left hand and the one for the right hand. Those also gonna be the potential targets to being pulled by us or directly grabbed. Alright, now what we're gonna do, we're gonna need to create one more function that we're gonna later use to update our grab component, our target grab component. So let's create it. So we'll name it update target grab component. This function gonna get two variables for the input. First gonna be the reference for the target grab component, left or right, and second gonna be the reference for the new potential target grab component. So for example, this can be the case when we were pointing to one object and then we are pointing nowhere, or we switched from pointing to one object to another object. And so we have to update our outline. We will have to remove it from the old object and apply it to the new one. The second parameter here should be passed by a reference, which will allow us to update the value in it. First, we're gonna check whether those two passed variables are even different, because if they're not, for example, both null or it's the same object, we will have to do just nothing. Here we're gonna create a sequence. And first of all, for the new potential target, we can reference it like this. Target grab component. We're gonna have to check if it's valid because it can be null. For example, we are pointing to nowhere. And if it's valid, we're gonna have to create one more function that will be used exactly for marking the object as a potential target with the outline. It will be used both ways, for adding an outline or removing the outline. So we're gonna call it right here. We can't right now like this because there is no input variables. Let's add the call. And now let's implement it. First, let's add input variables. First gonna be just a Boolean variable called can be grabbed, which we're gonna use to know whether we have to apply the outline or we have to remove it. And the second gonna be just the reference for the grab component this is applied to. Let's select the correct type, grab component, and we won't need this to be passed by reference specifically, so you can remove it. From our potential grab component target, we're gonna have to get its owner. It's gonna be an actor. From it, we're gonna get its root component, which we'll try to cast to primitive component, which states for the component that it's somewhere represented in the world, so visually represented. We'll check if it's a valid component, so it means that this actor actually has some primitive component as root. Then we'll get our input variable can be grabbed. Here also should be passed by reference. And yeah, and here we're gonna use the function called setRenderCustomDepth that we're gonna use to turn the highlight on or off, and just we're gonna pass this boolean over here as a parameter. Now we can connect our target grab component over here, and by passing the false here, we will remove the outline from the target grab component, which if we reach this place was like the previous grab component, so it should not have the outline on it. Now let's use set by reference, and here we will set null to the handler of the previous grab component. So we like cleaning the variable at this moment. Now it's time to handle our new target. We can get it like this. First, we're gonna check if it's valid. Now let's get the owner from it. And now it's time to use the function from our static library, can be potential target. So let's maybe try to check this. Can be, yeah, here it is. And we will pass the owner to this function. Now let's check whether the return here is true or false. And in case it's true, then we will first have to update our target grab component reference. Again, we're gonna use set by ref over here. So we're gonna get the target grab component variable that is passed to our current function as a target for the update, and for the value, we're gonna use the new target. So the current update function will not only update the outline, but will also update the value of the target component. And now we're gonna turn on the outline, again, using the already created function. Here we will pass our new target and set this to true. Because tracing for the potential target is something to be done on tick continuously, we'll need a function for that. Let's call it update potential target. It's gonna take two inputs. The first gonna be the motion controller for the aim. We're gonna use it to determine in which direction we're gonna have to do the trace for the potential target. So we won't be passing, for example, the motion controller left, but we're gonna be passing motion controller left aim to this function. And the type should be just the motion controller object reference. And the second variable gonna be the target grab component, which we're gonna pass inside this function by reference. And in case of a successful trace, we will update this variable. So first, we're gonna have to use trace aim over here with passing our aim motion controller as an input. We're gonna check if we hit something. Then from the hit result, we're gonna need first to break hit result like this. Here we're gonna need the actor, and for the actor we're gonna call find top prio grab component. Let's connect the actor and just minimize this. Then we're gonna call the update target grab component, and we're gonna pass the grab component we have found using trace to this function. And for the second parameter, we will pass our current target grab component. And we also have to handle the case when we hit nothing. So for example, as I mentioned before, we are tracing to nowhere. For this case, we're still gonna have to call this function, but as a new target, we will pass just nothing. So we will just clear the outline from the current target grab component if it's valid. And now it's time to start using all those functions we have created. In the graph where the successful grab happens, we will first call update our target component. We're gonna pass the target component for the hand this current input is used for, and we're gonna update it with null. So this case is if, for example, we had some potential target, but we have successfully grabbed something, we no longer need to have any outline potential targets. So we should just clean the outline from the current one if we had any. Now we can try to do a little optimization trick, because at the moment we will be constantly tracking for the potential target. We, at the moment, when we try to grab something, can first check whether we have this potential target close enough. If we do, then we won't have to do additional trace, because why if we have already tracked something that is too close? So let's just do a check for it over here. So we're gonna check if our current potential target for the current hand is valid and if it's close enough. We're gonna get the world location for the motion controller and for the grab component, use the distance, and check if it's less than the already existing variable for tracing the grab. Let's move it. Here we're gonna need to add the branch. And in case it's false, we will do the trace as before, but for the case it's true, we will just return our potential target grab component. So we won't do the unnecessary work. Here we will just continue like this, if we won't have the potential target at all. All right, now we're gonna have to do the same for the other hand. So as before, for the potential successful grab, we will clear our potential target. Now for the other hand, and we're gonna have to pass our potential target to the first function, like this. And I think I have forgotten to do this for the previous one. Yeah, right here. Don't forget that it's a different hand. Now, technically, the same optimization for the grab component as we call it under aim. Also, we're gonna pass here the potential target, and following the same principle, we're gonna check if it's valid. Then we won't have to do the trace, we will just return it. Otherwise, we will follow the old logic. All this gonna be possible because we're gonna be tracing for the potential target every tick. In the same way, let's connect our potential target over here. And for the other hand, like this. Again, make sure you're passing the variables for the right hand in those functions. So I've been telling you about the tick. Now it's time to add our new functionality. Over here, for both hands, we're gonna have to add our update potential target function call. So let's search for it, update potential target. We will embed it into the existing logic. Here we're gonna pass our motion controller and our variable for the target grab. Remember that the motion controller should be for the aim. And now the same for the other hand. Again, just make sure that you're passing the correct aim motion controller now for the right hand and the target component variable for the right hand. And now in the same way as we did for grabbing the object nearby, because all this logic here can result into the grab, we will have to clear the outline. For the case we were outlining some distant object, then we pulled it and it's being grabbed, so no need to keep the outline on it. So we will have to clear it over here. Let's copy this for the other hand. So the object we are currently holding won't have the outline. All right, and now one little thing that I wanted to do as an attempt of a potential improvement. So for the update the pulled target, over here we were checking the distance to its center, but we can try to improve it with a simple trick. We will use this grab function over here. So what it's gonna do for us, for the object like the giant sphere, we might not wait until we reach the center with our hand, but we will trace and check when we just like reach the surface. So our hand will be on the surface when the object gonna be grabbed. It will be more realistic. This logic in general can be more complicated, but I want to keep it simple for now, and this is just a simple trick on how to improve the visuals. So the idea is pretty simple. We try to grab something nearby. If the object we potentially can grab equals to the one we are currently pulling, we will return true. Otherwise, we will return false. Get the owner, connect it here, and we will return whether they're equal. For the case, the potential target nearby is something valid. So here it's gonna mean that it equals or not to our pulled object. Otherwise, we just return false. Now let's return to our level. The method for showing the outline in our case is based on post processes. So we're gonna have to add the post process volume. Post process means that the scene first rendered to the texture and then something applied to the final result. Here for the materials, add our material instance. And select the infinite extent over here, so it will cover the whole world. Now, for example, if we select any object like a box, and here render custom depths, if we select it to true, we will see the outline. This is gonna work for any object at all, but in our case, we're gonna be using it only on those objects who have the grab component on them. Otherwise, we'll be able to highlight, for example, even a wall, but we definitely cannot grab a wall, at least unless it has a grab component. Remember this mark for grab? Here we said they can be grabbed to the render custom depths. That's where our logic will turn on or off the outline for the object. I think because we right now have the outline, we can turn off the debug trace for our aim. I think I've made a little mistake over here. Here should be not equal. So we continue, as I mentioned, if our target has changed, not if it's the same, of course. And from what I can see, this should be connected over here, not here. Right now, at least this function looks correct. The only thing inside this function here, we have to return true, not false. Now let's test. So when I move my hand, you can see the outline appears. I can pull and grab the object. When I grab it, the outline disappears. I still can shoot. Everything works. Let's try to move closer. As you can see, now we have outline working for close distances too. If I'll grab a giant sphere, you can see the head remains on the surface, which means we have improved that a little. Throw catch. So we have successfully implemented the outline.